pleasure of interviewing the legend, Oisin O'Malley. Oisin has a popular YouTube channel where he talks about watches, his life in Venice, interviews, cigars, and more. Over the years, I've watched his channel grow and seen how he's developed his skill in filmmaking. I really enjoy watching his cinematic videos and his perspective on life. In this interview, we talk about how Oisin built his YouTube channel, his life in Venice, and what his plans are for the future. Enjoy. All good. How you going, by the way?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I had a late night, just put out a video last night, making of video. It took me a lot longer to put together. You know, I mean, I made the making of the video, and the making of took as long as the bloody video. You
Yeah,
know, it was like one of those things. It just wound up being a lot of editing. So
yeah.
yeah,
That was
late one.
the because you did that was a mystery of mechanical watch, right? And then you did the making of that one, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
it
was
just wound
awesome.
up being a shitload of editing. You know, I figured, oh, this will be easy. I'll just do a StreamYard and I'll record it, and then I'll drop in some inserts.
Yep.
Oh my God, no, it turned into a whole thing. So I just finally got it out last night. But as usual, the more interesting the video, the fewer the views. You know, I'll do a thing on the Rolex Pepsi in a few days, and that'll get 100,000 views.
Yeah.
Whereas this thing will struggle to get two. You know. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh
yeah.
wow. Yeah, I noticed that your yeah, the Rolex ones that you do, it's like a full-on movie, man. The way you film it, it's just you take your time in filming it, then you've got overlay the music, and then you got your voice over it, and then you have a bit of mix of different clips, and then you put your thoughts out there in terms of what you're thinking in terms of your filming it. Like for example, the one how you had a reflection of the of you on the watch. It looked like some sort of person, like a dead person or something walking. Remember how you said that? And the color of the Pepsi on the watch matched with the gondola, I think,
That's
in
right.
Venice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just really fascinating, like the way you film and think as well, and you integrate all that together. That's really cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, for some reason that's all I know how to do. You know, from day one, or practically from day one, just make the watch interesting and take in the surroundings. The first camera I got that was decent was a Canon D200 or 200D, and it just sits. The body of the camera is at the same level as the lens. There's no extra, parts to it. So when you put it down on a table, it's literally at the perfect height for a watch and a cup of coffee in the background. And I also had a wide angle lens just by sheer coincidence. That was one of the first I had. And with the wide angle, I was able to take in beautiful Italy,
Mm.
around people walking past and beautiful buildings and the watch. And it just kind of was like serendipitous. It just kind of all came together, and it started just working from day one. And I was able to do some focus pulls, excuse me, and uh, pull focus from the watch to the background and to the watch again. And all of a sudden, kind of compositional bedding was set, and it just led from there. And then it's a funny thing, you just put a little music in the background, and all of a sudden you kind of spark up people's imagination. So it
Mm.
kind of went from there, you know.
Yeah, it helps that you also got a background in a band as well. I mean, you've got the that background. You used to be in a band, and you understand music and how everything all flows, right? That always helps.
It certainly does. It's worked its way into the channel big time. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it's a set of tools that you have from a past life kind of thing, That's how it's working out. Um, I can't imagine trying to put this stuff together without that kind of background, without understanding linear editing systems and without understanding music and musical composition. I think I'd be lost.
Mm.
So I'm getting messages all morning now from people who've watched the other YouTubers, who watched the video from last night. just kind of gone, Jesus, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, how can we compete with this? It, I, I think, you use the skills that you have. There are other watch channels that have different kinds of skills and different backgrounds and so on, and they come to the hobby and content creation from a from their own angles. I did notice that there are a few musicians. There's Adrian Barker from Barker Jack. He has a music degree. He's a guitarist. And there's the Mad Watch Collector. He's also a singer and a guitarist. There seems to be a correlation here with musicians. It's something we're already familiar with. Putting content together is something we already. It's kind of our home. It's not an unusual place to go. In fact, that creative outlet is probably our favorite place to be.
Yeah, I can see that you absolutely love it. You love what you're doing. You're filming. You're talking about the topics that you love to talk about, and yeah, you're just getting better. I just watch your skill. Your skill just gets better and better with every video that you're putting out there. I mean, I think the first video I saw of you was the one how you're talking about, do women like Rolex? And it was just
Right.
you just giving your opinion on what it's like to wear one, and then when you meet a girl, what does she think? And it was a really cool video, and it was just you just talking, just yourself. And then over the years, you just made all these different videos where it's different cinematics and music and stuff like that. So it's just interesting seeing how you grow it. And you're already at 80K subscribers. You're about to hit the 100K soon. Yeah, maybe this year. Who
Maybe.
knows, man?
Who knows? Yeah, it's a slow crawl up there. I stopped kind of looking at that number a long time ago. It was exciting when the channel started. I didn't think anybody'd be interested. I remember getting 100 subscribers going, wow, 100 people are interested in this crap. I can't believe it. Yeah, they're the early days. That video, do the women notice your watch, or whatever it was called. Yeah, that was just kind of finding my footing. And of course, COVID hit very early in the channel, which affected the channel a lot. I think a lot of channels were born out of that lockdown. I know a lot that were people stuck in their homes and not being able to go anywhere and thinking, well, what the hell can I do? I need something to do with my time. So a lot of people start sitting in front of a camera and uploading the stuff to YouTube. And that was kind of the case. I just started it at the, what was it, October 2019. So within a few months, we were all in lockdown, and it very much affected the channel. It was, I mean, thank God, really, because, doing any studio work or any other kind of work that I would do was obviously not going to happen. So it really worked out well. And then, yeah, the creativity just starts building and building. I don't know, but I would say maybe in a year, I hope the production quality will be even better than it is now. I mean, that I can only assume that it will be if I keep going with this stuff.
You're gonna do this for life, right?
I don't know. I kind of just move with the tide. Honestly, I just go with the flow. I'm that kind of person. When I came over to Italy, I was supposed to be going back and forth to New York because New York was my home for 20 years. And I still have a business based out of New York. But of course, COVID hit, wound up stuck here, and I haven't been back. So I just kind of went with the flow. I still have an office over there, and it hasn't seen me for 4 years. So it's kind of crazy. Yeah, so I don't know. I would imagine I'll probably be doing this for another while, especially now that there are so many people paying attention. But who knows what's around the corner?
Yeah, sure way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just because I see a lot of watch channels online. I saw
Hmm.
yours. I've seen I think it's Paul Thorpe as well. I think you did an interview with him once as well.
I
He's got
did.
a unique perspective on thing as well. He's very friendly to his audience, and I've seen other channels like Archie Luxury, and there's all these other different ones, right? They all talk about Rolexes and stuff, but yeah, your one is just really unique, you know, just the way it presents itself and different topics that you talk about. So I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured yeah, I thought I'll like to, you know, ask you just a couple of questions really on just what you're doing and uh basically, you know, why YouTube? Why YouTube? What got you into it? I'm just curious about how you got started into it. You mentioned in 2019, right? COVID happened
Hmm?
just before COVID, and you just started filming, and that was it, right? Did you do any courses or anything like that, or was it just
No, no.
yeah?
Well, I mean, the interest started because I was watching other channels. You know, I was watching the watch YouTube channels as I got into the watch hobby. Honestly, I paid very little attention to YouTube before that. Um, I was in a rock band, as you know, for a couple of decades, and based out of New York. And the band split up just as YouTube was beginning to kind of kick in, um, which is odd. You know, had we stuck it out for another 10 years, I think we would have had a much bigger presence on YouTube. It just kind of it was kind of in the noughties between 2000 and 2010 was kind of, they were our years, and YouTube started really picking up, and social media started really picking up in 2010 and 2012. You know, those years were when it started really accelerating. And of course, now it seems like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they're all part of our society. They're so embedded in it now. It's hard to imagine reality without them. I started watching these channels just to learn about watches. So I bought a Seamaster 300M watch from eBay. It was my first nice watch I ever bought in my life, and I had no box or papers or anything. And it occurred to me that there's always a chance that I bought a fake watch. I was reading online and people talking about counterfeit watches, and because of that, it wasn't. Of course, it was a perfectly real watch, and I still own it and I love it. But because I was a little paranoid, I wanted to learn, so I went around the internet trying to read up to, you know, figure out the signs to look for in the watch to make sure it was good. And that led me, of course, to YouTube, because there are lots of videos on YouTube, people going, well, you got to look for this and that and make sure the serial number is good and all of that kind of stuff. So next thing, I'm watching all these channels and I'm enjoying the channels. And I think this occurs to, you know, to a lot of people watching other channels saying, you know what, I want to do that too. I know that's the case because I hear from people every day saying that, you know, that they watch my channel and it's inspired them to start their own channel. So I started in exactly the same way, and it was just that kind of you know, I think a lot of people write in the comments under videos because they want to be heard, because they want to share their opinion. Um, it's just an extension of that. It's just a beefed up version of commenting under a video. You go make your own video. Now you've got your own arena. Now you've got your own voice, and you can put it out there, and hopefully somebody listens. So that's why it started. And yeah, it was at the end of 2019. I'd just gone through a breakup, actually. I was living with a girl here, a doctor here in Italy, and I thought I was going to get married, and for the first time maybe in my life, which was crazy for me. And that kind of fell flat on its face, and I moved out to a different apartment, and then I found myself, you know, not working not working on the thing I thought I'd be working on, which was supposed to be this relationship and so on. So I was like, okay, well, I'm normally used to doing 10 things at the same time and having a lot of projects going on, music projects and computer projects, and working on with my store in New York and so on. Now all of a sudden I'm twiddling my thumbs, I've nothing to do. So I was like, okay, so for the next few months, let me figure out, I need something to occupy my time and keep my, head level. So that's really where the channel started.
So it's not like you had a big grand scheme of things, right? It wasn't the big plan that you had brewing. It was just random occurrence. You just started watching videos, you got inspired, and then one thing led to another, and then here you are.
Definitely. I think that happens with a lot of YouTubers. I don't know how many people sit down and say, okay, I'm going to start a channel tomorrow. And in a year, I'm going to be the biggest channel in that sector or whatever. I think a lot of people just started kind of as an experiment and something interesting to do. And then next thing, they find themselves very involved with it. And again, the lockdown, COVID lockdown really stimulated not just my channel, but I think a lot of channels, because the best way to have a channel is to have no social life. I think a lot of the YouTubers begin channels because they don't have a lot to do. They're not going out a lot, and they're not touring, and they're not doing all these. They sit in their bedroom and they, talk to a camera. And the more of that you do, the more content you'll create. And next thing, you could turn into being a channel that people watch. So with lockdown, that kind of forced a lot of us to do that, didn't it? Had lockdown not happened, I'm not sure I would have focused as much. But, when you get out of bed in the morning and then realize that you can't leave the house, whether you like it or not, you can't leave. I mean, it was pretty harsh lockdown here in Italy. If you remember, we were the first country to be hit
that's
outside
right.
of China. Do you remember? We were all over the news. So, of course, then it hit everywhere. But for a good 2 or 3 weeks, everybody thought, oh, poor Italy, like they got hit by this weird thing. We couldn't leave. We couldn't go unless, you had a permit to go out. You had to like fill in this permit thing and carry your ID to go to the supermarket to buy groceries. I started documenting that on the channel as well. People wanted to see that too. I think without that, I probably would have had better things to do, quite honestly. But I didn't. And like most of us, we were walking around in our pajamas for months, weren't we? And just like sipping on cups of coffee and calling our families on Zoom and watching Netflix, So I think that stimulated not just my channel, but a lot of channels. Had it not been for that, I'm not sure if the channel would still exist. Who knows?
So that was the biggest thing that you learned during COVID, was that you get to focus just on your passion, really, or just focus on, whatever is in front of you and just try and improve it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I tend to put as much passion as possible into anything that I do, as corny as that sounds. So it doesn't really matter. Had I picked up, I don't know, knitting and crochet or playing chess or something else, I would have gone completely crazy into that too. I mean, had I picked up, like just the other day, I've got some beautiful foliage around the house here, beautiful trees. And right now, of course, the weather is changing and it's getting warm. And I'm sitting at the window in the kitchen and I'm observing these birds that keep landing. And there's some very, very interesting birds. So I start taking photos of them and looking up. And now I found all these websites that specialize in bird watching, And I'm like, oh my God, here I go again. Like, and now I found a new thing. Like, what am I going to start a channel now talking about rare birds? And, it's whatever I get into it. And I just have that nature about me. I like to dissect things and experiment. When I was a kid, my mom used to always say that, you know, at Christmas we get toys. You know, for Christmas I was one of 5 kids, and she'd always say, how long before he starts breaking the thing apart to see how it works? Give him a couple of hours, he'll play with the toy, you know, whatever it is, an Action Man kid or a Spider-Man toy or whatever it is. He'll play with it for a couple of hours, then he'll get bored and he'll start pulling it apart to see how it works. And then he'll try and rebuild it. She was absolutely right. That's my nature. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just tell that you're a very deep person. And yeah, it's just, you don't like surface level stuff, do you? You like to just go deep into a lot of different topics, or just go deep into one topic and try and dissect it.
What surface level? I don't even know what that is.
Well, I can't see you doing anything, you know, very superficial or anything like that, right? It's very deep and meaningful.
Like what? Dancing in a discotheque or
Yeah, something
something?
like
I
that.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. You're not gonna do that.
It depends. It depends, you know. It's okay to turn your brain off sometimes. Do you know, your brain can't be going at 100 miles an hour all the time. Sometimes you need to just veg out and put on a silly movie and eat ice cream and stare at the wall. Like that's okay to do too. Um, but yeah, without a little bit of depth in life, I'm not sure it would all be worth it. You know, what's the point? And what's the point in just wandering around, you know, life and staring at things? It's, you know, you gotta put something in back into the world. I believe that too. I remember seeing an interview with a comedian. I can't remember his name years ago, and he said once you hit your 30s, that's it's time to stop looking at yourself in the mirror. It's time to put back into the world. Your 20s, you can be pretty and you can do stuff and focus on yourself and drink 6 to 8 glasses of water a day and all of that. Once you hit your 30s, it's time to be creative and give back to the world. Now that was in your 30s. I'm approaching 50 now. It's like you get to a point where you have to, I feel that you have to start giving back. You have to put something back into the world. So, I mean, my band was that for a long time, writing songs. And now with the channel, I get a lot of messages from people saying, you know, I love coming to your channel because it relaxes me, or I learn things, or I cried because it was very emotional, or I learned about music, or I'm into wine now because you taught me so much about wine, or I'm learning about the watches and about culture and about Italy and things like that. I feel good now because I'm giving back, you know, I'm giving to other people through the channel. So I think people tend to think that YouTube content creators are operating through vanity, you know, because they like to see themselves on the screen. I don't like to think that. I did my years of that. I was on a stage for most of my life with the band. I've been in front of cameras most of my life, and there was plenty of vanity in that, you know, and creativity. But now I feel like some of the videos, in fact, if you watch certain videos, I don't even appear in the video at all. I just narrate, I just speak, and then I use imagery. But it's to put out, you know, creativity into the world and give something back to the world. That's my motivation at the moment.
And I can hear the audience, they're pressing to ask the question, you know, do you have time to date or find someone? You know, I mean, you're really busy filming and creating all this content and everything. You know?
Well, lately, no. It doesn't. For some reason, it doesn't occur to me to date. I mean, the romantic interludes I've had in the past year have been, I don't know, I could count them on one hand, and they've been fleeting. But you have to understand, I've come to a point now. I have 2 children. I've got a daughter here and I have a son in California, and they're beautiful and they're amazing. And I've been a very lucky boy, in my lifetime, and I don't feel the need. I don't feel much need. Again, going with the flow. If I meet someone and I have time to put into that, fine. But right now, my satisfaction is coming out of just creating content. That's just right now. That could be different in a year or in 6 months or in a week. I don't know. One thing is for sure that the breakup that I had a few years back, that was the kind of last significant relationship I had. That was occupying a lot of my time. And I wouldn't imagine it would be fun to live with or date someone who is a serious content creator, because it does occupy a lot of your time. So, also, I mean, you're making me reflect on this now. This is interesting. I also have a tendency to go for hours and hours through the night when I'm editing or when I'm putting a video together. I think some of these YouTubers I see are very regimented, and they're very, they put a certain amount of hours in every day, and it's all very nice and balanced. There's nothing balanced about my creative process. I could be up straight for 3 days with no sleep just because I need to finish the video. And I'd say that if I was living with someone, or somebody was living with me, it would probably drive them around the bed, So there it is. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, Right now, that's my focus.
Nice. It's like some sort of order in your chaos, isn't it? Like there's no set structure. It's just you're like water. You flow like water. And
listen, in 6 months I could be married. I don't know.
yeah,
I honestly, I don't know. These things tend to just flow the way they do. So yeah, and I'll go with the flow. I'm that kind of a guy.
what about the biggest thing that you learned from the breakup? What was it? Just curious.
I learned a lot from that breakup. I mean, the breakup started the channel. I mean, we've got that breakup to thank, because if I was still in that relationship, there's no bloody way there wouldn't have been time or the space to be creative on the channel. And I think what I learned is that I wasn't expecting that relationship to happen in the first place. I was like, okay, I'm never getting married. And then, these things come along, and you're all of a sudden you're going, oh my God, this is kind of weird. I wasn't expecting this to happen. So I think probably the biggest lesson is that as you age, you assume life is coming to a close. I think people, when they hit 25, go, oh my God, I'm getting so old, and then when you're 50, you look at that person and go, you have no clue what's ahead of you. Like, you're just getting started, kiddo. And it's kind of true that, wow, what was that phrase? Life begins at 40, I think life keeps re-beginning. Life will begin at 50 again, and at 60 again, if I last that long. It tends to have lots of chapters. Life is like a really interesting book. So that was a big lesson about that. Had you told me 5 years ago that I would be living in Venice and a relatively successful YouTuber, I wouldn't have believed you at all. So it just goes to show, like, you don't know what's around the corner ever.
So if you were to go into a time machine and go back 10, 20 years, what would you say to young yourself?
It's a tough one. I'd probably just say keep going.
Keep going.
Keep
Nice.
going.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. So what are you thinking about in terms of, you know, the watches? Is there another watch you're going to go after soon, or you just you're pretty happy with your current collection, or are you planning on
I'm quite happy with it. I'm learning to be happy with the collection I have. I think
Mm,
that's a big mistake a lot of watch collectors make, is not being content and then selling a watch and then missing that watch and going, why did I do that? Why I didn't need this new thing, you know. I'm learning 4 years into the hobby now. Well, three and a half years into the hobby, I'm learning to look at the collection and go, you know, that's great. I love it now, because I've made the mistake of not being fully content and trying to move parts around and sell one to buy another and all of that. But you know, and then you're excuse me, then you're going back through your phone and you see an old photo of your collection as it was a year ago or 2 years ago, and you miss it and you go, oh my God, I didn't know what I had back then. I should have been happy. So I'm trying to there's a phrase going around when people talk about the good old days, that one of the challenges in life is to recognize when it is the good old days during the good old days. Because that's the problem with people. We tend to look back and reminisce at a great time. And at that time, we didn't know what we had. So it's the same thing with the watch collecting. I'm trying to love it now, love the moment I'm in now, and not feel the need to keep pursuing pieces constantly, you know.
wise advice right there.
Yeah, well, yeah. If we can do that, you know, it's all about, you know, isn't that what some people say is the key to happiness? It's just learning to be happy with what you've got, you know. It's a choice.
All right. So how can people get in contact with you and find out what you're doing?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. You know, I give updates, you know, throughout the day, like anyone on Instagram. You can obviously follow the channel. You can become a member of the channel and like send certain footage and extra stuff to the members and kind of keep them updated. If you need to ask me any questions, let's say you're into watches or you're into wine or you want to travel to Italy or anything, you can always DM me on Instagram, or you can write to me at Oisin O'Malley channel at gmail.com. I usually spend my mornings answering questions from various people. A lot of people want to travel here, or they need advice about various different things. And if I have the time, I will reply. Um, yeah, they're the simplest ways. So it's my Instagram is Oisin O'Malley channel, and it's Oisin O'Malley on YouTube. It's pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, once again, man, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing what you're doing and your gold nuggets, your wisdom for today. And
Sure.
yeah, I wish you all the best, man, for your future endeavors. And I know that whatever you choose to do, you're gonna absolutely rock it, And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. You've got a massive community that's following you, you love your work, and you can clearly see it. So yeah, well done, man.
Thanks so much, man, and thanks for having me on.
All good. No worries.